All right, welcome back for another live episode of the Relationship Series. My name is Gina Spataro, and this is my brother Sam Spataro, always talking about matters of the heart and mind. Sorry about the delay. We were just having a little bit of technical difficulty. Story of our series. How was your week, Sam?
My week has been fantastic.
Good.
Actually. Awesome. Yeah, really good. Created some new business this week, and things are opening up again. So we're looking forward to planning some skiing coming up before the, snow goes away in about a month's time.
Yeah.
Which is great. I'm actually joined a group called Beachbod. So I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes, yeah.
So I started that on Monday.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm sore as F right now.
Do they keep you accountable for anything, or?
Well, what you have to do is you do the workouts, and then after you're done the workout, you take a picture, log your workout, put in some comments about it.
Yeah.
So in that essence, you have to be accountable, because if you're not doing the programs, it shows up on your coach's platform that you're not sticking with it, right?
Very cool.
But they're really good. They're really interactive and engaging, and pretty easy to do with like basic things, right? I'm used to going to a gym, and when COVID hit, I ended up buying some straps. I was doing some stuff from home, but I feel like with this, it's almost like you're with a group of people, but you're not.
Yeah.
Right. So it makes it a lot more engaging and interactive and fun, which is super cool, especially when it comes to working out, because most people hate working out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a cool aspect of it. And I don't know, just really good. Just looking for new investment opportunities. Thanks to your boyfriend, I'm really enjoying the crypto side of my investment strategies. Just hooked up with a gentleman that I might be partnering up with the sports card side / aka Pokemon. So
very cool.
Yeah, which is super cool and exciting. That's pretty much it. Just really Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, I'm trying to, number one, my focus is on my health right now, because I've gained a bit of weight over the COVID 2 weeks / 365 days that we're in. And I'm just, I want to be the best version of myself for my kids and my wife and myself and every day. So I decided to, do something about it. How about you? What's new with Gigi?
Same things. I just finished my women's group. Always amazing connecting with them. Fitness wise, I've had a few ladies join my group, which is really nice. They're super motivated. Looking forward to spring ahead. Looking forward to
it. Not too far.
It's not too far. And that's about it. Really and truly, that's about it. Nothing major. Looking forward to things opening up again too, hopefully for a little bit longer this time. And that's it. Nothing major to report this week. But we do have an interesting topic tonight, because I know Sam is really well versed in, giving an alternative opinion about this topic. And it's how to deal with loss or death or grief in some way, shape, or form. And I know you wanted to first talk about our experiences with loss, which is probably very familiar with a lot of people, right? And I don't think it's bad or good, or it's just what we were used to, right? So you can start if you want, your experience with loss, and then I'll chime in. Maybe I have some different viewpoints since we come from the same family.
Well, I mean, what's unique about that is we could have two completely perspectives seeing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Which we'll tie into later. But I mean, loss could be numerous things, right?
100%.
It could be a pet. It could be moving to another country if your parents are in the army or you're in the army. It could be a loss of a friend, a parent, a spouse, a child, I mean, loss really is, I mean, it's very broad in that context, right? But for me, I remember, I believe I was 13, and it was our Uncle George that passed away.
Yeah.
And it was the very first funeral that I went to. And the reason I went was because I had a cousin that I was very close to, and it was his grandfather. So I'm under the assumption that's why I went at a very young age. And I remember going there, and everything was fine. Seeing everything that was going on, and then I remember when it came to the burial. The next thing you know, I'm seeing people passing out on the grass, and just people like losing their cool and going crazy. And I started crying and going crazy. And I remember on the way home, I started to think about, death and everything that happened. I was having a panic attack in the back seat. I think I was around 12 years old at the time. And I didn't say anything to our dad and our grandfather. And I just kind of kept it to myself. And as, time progressed, it was one of those things that I always hated to go to. We have such a huge family. So, it was always something that was going to be very prevalent in our lives. And, it was always much of the same, where, people were black, people were always, it was just such a gloomy setting. Once again, seeing people jump on caskets as they're going in the grounds, passing out, people freaking out and losing it. And, I didn't really create a good belief system after a few of those experiences. I always thought it was the end. It's doom and gloom. It's, there's nothing, good that come out of this. It's grief, grieve for your life and never get over it. And then when I was about 37 years old, or I think it was 37 or 38, my best friend died. Jerry died. And I took that really, really, really hard. And that's when I started to have a lot of bouts with anxiety, because I started to think, when's my turn next? And what I started to do is I began on a journey of, number one, battling the anxiety, and also, trying to figure out what the meaning of my life was, what my purpose was, when is my time, when's not my time, what's going to happen to me in my life. I just started to realize that, there's a few things that I needed to change. And it was literally the only thing that I could control in my life. And for most cases, it's the only thing we all can get to control. And that is the beliefs that we create and the meaning that we give events that happen in our lives. And so I decided to work on myself and update my belief system, and try to find a way to get out of an old system that wasn't serving to me, and get into a way where I could feel somewhat empowered. So I go back to a bunch of years ago where a cousin of ours passed away. Our father's first cousin, best friend, died. And I remember we were all sitting around as he was, taking his last breaths. And I remember telling Dad to sing him a song. And I remember saying, look, there's going to be time for us all to grieve, but let's let him remember this, rather than seeing us all in pain and suffering with him. And at that point, I realized that, when you're in a moment like that, you still have the power to control, how you're going to deal with the grief and the loss. It's not about not dealing with it, but it's about dealing with it in a way where it's very constructive to your spirit, to your persona, to your soul, to your energy, and to those around you. And from then on in, I just decided to change my perception of what death was. And I created this belief that there was no such thing as death. I changed it to the scope of we are an energy. Apparently, energy never dies, it transforms. So to me, the human life is just a way to experience, the energy that you are with a human body.
Right.
And that when you pass on, you move on to another thing, the next thing, you transform. You're an infinite energy that never dies, right? It's always floating and changing. And so it was really important to me because I knew how much it affected me when I was a young boy. And I didn't want my children to have, not that I didn't want them to have the experience, I didn't want them to create the beliefs that I created with the experiences that I had. And so I made it a mission to believe that, life is much like a butterfly. A butterfly comes into a larva state and is a caterpillar for a part of its life, and then it transforms into a butterfly. But there's a state there where there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things that it doesn't understand. And then it transforms into a butterfly. So to me, that's the meaning of human life. And a few years ago, my daughter went to a funeral with my wife, whose colleague, one of her colleagues, her mother passed away. And I sat with my daughter and explained to her what the meaning of life was and what death was, and that there was no such thing as death, that it's merely a transformation into a different form of what you are. And so that was the belief that we created. And before she went, we sat down and we thought, what was something you could do to uplift the person's spirit or heart that is in a moment of loss? And so she wrote a letter to my wife's colleague, and she brought it to her. And the very next day, my wife's colleague texted my wife and said, I want you to thank your daughter because I had it in my pocket when I was saying eulogy and it gave me strength. So the whole purpose of this is that we are all going to experience loss in our life. But the difference is, are you going to suffer? Are you going to get in a place of gratitude and thankfulness and appreciation and empathy and move with the grief in a positive direction for the rest of your life?
Right.
So that was a really big stepping point for me because it alleviated a lot of anxiety, a lot of, depression, which I felt when I lost, Jerry. And, it eliminated a lot of fear in my life about when my time is up, and I have this saying, we're all going to pass on or die one day, but you don't want to do that while you're alive. Right. And the only way you can do that when you're alive is to create empowering beliefs about the things that you don't understand.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, we did have those experiences as young kids. Like as young kids, we experienced death at the forefront very early on, and we watched through the eyes of a child, the way adults dealt with it, right? So, and no fault of theirs because that's probably how they were taught, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely.
And moving forward, so yes, it's recreating, like you said, that belief. I used to fear death. I used to fear, like you, it's like, oh my God, like I'm getting
Do you remember
old.
your first experience? What was it?
My most memorable one was George.
George.
Our cousin.
Which one?
Dad's cousin.
Busima?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I was young still. Like I was still young. I remember visiting him when he was sick, and it wasn't foreign to me. I knew that, but it was a little bit more real when I could remember. Like obviously there was an incident where I'm not going to say it online as to what it was that made me remember. And I was just like, why do we do that? This is so awkward. But it's just part of the culture, right? Like there's some cultures where you're right, they don't grieve like this. They celebrate. They don't have, some cultures don't have open caskets. They just cremate. Right? So it's very cultural. And in our culture, that's a lot of the times how they deal with death. But on the flip side, yes, it's understanding death in a different way where you can be a little bit more in a gratitude state. Like a lot of the times we did celebrate deaths that were of aged people, most of the time, right? Majority. And instead of being like, wow, they actually were granted a full life. You know what I mean? Like the gratitude in that. Like we actually got to spend this many years experiencing their joy and their love and da 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 da. Whereas, of course, with any form of loss, there's going to be all types of emotions. Gratitude may not be the very first and foremost emotion, right? It may come with a consciousness. You might feel sad, you might feel upset, you might get a little bit anxious. And I think it's honoring those emotions too, though. I think you have to honor whatever shows up. But like anything in this, developmental stage, it's using those tools and recognizing, okay, what am I forgetting here? What's the bigger picture that I'm forgetting? That I know, and then I need to recreate in this moment. Okay, I was blessed to have so and so or something in my life. The lessons and the memories and everything, right? But yeah, that was my experience. I'm not so much fearful of it now, even for myself. I view loss very differently. And it's also in that thought where it's like you evaluate your things in your life where it's like, what's bringing me joy and what's not. Because a lot of the times you do want to live in a joyful state. And, you look back too, and it's like, oh, were these people sad? Were they sad for different reasons? Where it's like maybe they didn't live to their fullest joyful states. Maybe it was all very complacent, who knows? But with the consciousness, you're able to, I think, like we're talking now, recreating and empowering beliefs, right? So is there anything else you want to say about this one before we move on, Tim?
I had a thought when you were speaking, and I completely gapped out. I think really what it comes down to is, yes, it can be cultural. I mean, that can dictate, what the funerals are going to be like, what people are going to dress like, the things that they're going to talk about, how they're going to act, and how they would live their lives afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And, you did mention cultural. Like I remember going to my first Caucasian funeral, and I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. Like, everyone was dressed in casual clothes. And there was a party afterwards, like a celebration. I couldn't comprehend that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because, you're so used to just, knowing one thing, or, so for me, it was just a realization that, the meaning in death can either be taught, right, through
Mm-hmm.
your culture, your upbringing, whatever it might be. And also, and this is more so anything else. It's always your own perception that you need to be in charge of, that you create, that gives it the ultimate meaning. So,
yeah, 100%. So you did have this one as our last talking point. Gratitude versus anxiety, your feelings. So we touched upon this briefly. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you need to honor all your feelings. None of it is, good or bad or whatever. Like you're grieving at some form or state. But what do you mean by this? Choosing is choosing gratitude versus anxiety, or understanding them both when they show up?
So here's one thing I learned over the years, and there's enough research on this, is that you cannot be grateful and anxious at the same time.
Mm.
It's two completely different spectrums on the energy level within the human body,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can be either grateful or you can be anxious. You can't be both
Right.
at the same time. And so the feelings of gratitude versus anxiety is, we're going to want to go to that state of fear and stress and anxiety when it comes to dealing with death or loss. And it's one versus the other because there's a choice in which way we want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want people to understand is, gratitude versus anxiety. Maybe the conversation comes up at the dinner table with your kids. Hey, mommy and daddy, I was just talking to the friend and they said that, we're all going to die one day.
Mm-hmm.
Or, maybe you're one of those people that has never been to a funeral. You're an adult and you still have fears of going. And, I know adults today that still get anxious when they go to funerals, or even just have the thoughts of it. So I think that's the whole choice. It's choosing consciously which way you want to go emotionally.
Yeah.
So obviously I have the Become Your Own Hero sign behind me. And it was created a day when I was in the midst of my anxiety, where I understood that in order to retrain the villain in me, literally the villain in us all, we have to choose empowering beliefs to get us through those challenging times. And so the decision to feel gratitude versus anxiety is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want people to understand is that you have the choice when you're dealing with grief or loss, and which way you want to go and what you want to experience. And so it's very important. For me, I choose to get into a place of gratitude. It sounds silly, meaning those points that you brought up. It doesn't really matter how long they were here or how short they were here. All that matters is really how much time I got to spend with them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're focusing on what you do have rather than what you don't have or aren't going to have anymore.
Right.
You're making a conscious effort to intelligently choose the emotions, the feelings, and the meanings that you're going to give this experience that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe even a past experience that you're still struggling with. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. When you decide consciously what this is going to mean to you.
Mm-hmm. And I think if anybody's watching this and they're struggling with how to deal with, particular loss or potential loss, right? Because there's some people in transition. I think if you need someone to talk to, seriously reach out to Sam. He can coach you through this. He's really great at, working through what you're feeling, what you're thinking, how to go about your future endeavors while dealing with this loss, how to maybe retrain or recreate some different feelings around the loss that you're experiencing. But yeah, and I think one thing people need to know is that try not to be alone when you're dealing with loss. It's okay to talk about it and what you're feeling, because you never know what perspective you'll hear and which will help you transition past it too, right? Because it's not about forgetting, and it's not about having that person removed from your life. It's reliving the memories that you cherished, the things that they taught you, the lessons along the way, the things that you would like to pass down, that maybe you had experiences together, and that's creating the memorable part of your future, right? It's legacy. What legacy can you move from one person to the next, right? Which is a beautiful thing. When people are like, oh, you remind me of so and so when you do that. It's beautiful. Memories are forever, 100%. Is there anything you want to say before we log off, Sam?
Yeah, I do want to mention something.
Yeah.
I was mentioning it too, that there was this person that was reaching out to me on Facebook at odd times at night in Messenger. And this was a person that, was experiencing some issues also that I didn't even know about. And just odd little statements. And I kind of ignored it and didn't really pursue it because, I figured that if it was really something meaningful, they would have, tried to get a hold of me during the daytime, which they never did. Mm-hmm. And then a few weeks ago, I found out they passed away from cancer. Mm-hmm. So right away, I went into that feeling of loss and anxiety and regret where, why didn't I read into it? I could have helped them. I could have done all these sorts of things. And then I decided to step out of what I didn't do and to start focusing on what I did, and I started to get into a place of gratitude and started to get into the place of seeing what I did provide for her that maybe I didn't see. There was lots of things that I did on my Facebook and stuff that would be helpful to maybe the types of things that she was going through. Right. When I did see her the odd time, she would mention how much she, loved how positive I was and my posts and stuff like that. So I decide, you know what, there could have been more that I could have done, but I did do enough. I also did enough.
And also this could be just affirming that what you're doing is purposeful, right?
Exactly. And so, I totally agree. And listen, there's not a human being on this planet today that isn't going to deal with loss in some way, shape, or form in their life. But the question is, how are you going to deal with it?
100%. Yeah. And if you're stuck on that question, I highly recommend you reach out to Sam, and his information is down below as well. So on that note, Sam, if you're anything else you want to say, are you good?
Yeah, no, I just want to maybe send out some good vibes to people. I know, we've had a challenging year with a lot of uncertainty that has affected our lives. Mental health is on the rise. Divorce is on the rise. All kinds of not so positive things on the rise. But there's also a lot of good also. And so I just want to send my love, my empathy, my compassion to all those who might be struggling right now. And hope that the rest of your life in this year is very prosperous, healing, and fulfilling as well.
Awesome. And on that note, this is the relationship series. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And, we always come on here talking about the matters of the heart and mind. And we'll see you soon. Ciao for now.